Hello, everyone, and welcome to A2I Dyslexia. Sorry, I'm sitting here, just sitting here. I am ever so sorry. Welcome to A2I Dyslexia, all things Dyslexia Live show. We are so happy to have you join us again. I know we've been off air for quite some time. And I think maybe I said quite some time, maybe about a couple of weeks ago now. And we are back with brand new topics and amazing people that we will be speaking to today. Our special guest this evening is Mandy Elliott, who is the founder of the Focus Academy. Now, when we approached Mandy and we spoke to her, I was absolutely gobsmacked to find out the kind of work she does. And I thought, Mandy, where have you been all these years? I could really have done with some kind of cognitive or working memory of how I can, retain things in my short-term memory, which is something I really struggle with. But it's a pleasure to have Mandy on our show, and I will introduce her in a minute and she tell us a little bit about herself. But before I do that, I just want to say who I am. My name is Elizabeth Takyi. I'm the CEO of A2I Dyslexia. That's Mandy on the other side of England somewhere. I think Mandy will tell us where she is at the moment. From the Focus Academy. And Mandy, welcome to A2I Dyslexia Live Show. Such a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Thanks so much for having us. It's an honour to be here. Thanks very much.
How are you?
I'm actually looking forward to summer. We're going to be allowed out soon. Yay!
Absolutely fantastic, I'm telling you. Although, if I must say, Mandy, I do really love the fact that we can air this, the live show to many homes instead of people coming to the studio. So that means you would have had to travel to us from where you are to come to the studio for us to do this. But guess what? We can do it this way, which I think is absolutely fabulous. But I am also looking forward to a little bit of a lift of a lockdown. We can kind of maybe have some kind of normality again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I think it's revolutionised how we do things, which is pretty cool. There's been some upsides, not many, but some.
Absolutely, yes. It is such a pleasure to have you on our live show this evening, Mandy. Now, we have so many people watching us from all over the world. So normally when I say welcome to A2I, I say good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever they are. Because as a dyslexic, I am not brilliant with all the different time scales and where people are and so forth. I do know different countries. Some of them, people are probably sleeping at the moment. Some people are up, wherever they might be. But I want to welcome our viewers as well, because it's been some time. Now, Mandy, you're the founder of the Focus Academy. It was founded in 2017 to provide attention, training, and study skills by means of cutting edge to neurocognitive technology and exercise. I hope there's no big words in this intro because I do stumble across them. The Focus Academy works with individuals with memory or concentration challenges of all ages, from all sorts of background. Now, all ages, I will be one of them. My short-term memory, Mandy, is diabolical. Someone will tell me something, 5 minutes later, I'm going, what did you say again? Constantly have to keep asking people. And I think it's a real sort of challenge for me with my dyslexia. Now, including those diagnosed with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, as well as stroke victims and individuals in early stages. Dementia and Alzheimer's. Mandy is an ADHD crusader, a specialist and a supporter of all things S.E.N. Mandy, over to you. Tell us, our viewers, about yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you are passionate about the work you do.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, it's just amazing to be here. It's such a privilege. So thanks very much. Essentially, my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD when she was in primary school, so probably about 8 years ago. And the teacher, I always was worried about why there was a mismatch, because we know our children are incredibly intelligent, but we know they're not achieving at school. So I asked the teacher why. What's the reason for the mismatch? Why is she incredibly intelligent, but she's failing beautifully? And I can never answer the question. So we relocated from another country, and my daughter that year got put into year 7 and spectacularly failed for a number of reasons at the beginning of that first year in year 7 with her ADHD diagnosis. And so I went looking for solutions to help her, and I've tried to look for a study skills course. Maybe that would help her. If I could help her with some strategies to retain information, maybe that would change the way that she processes. But it was only when we kind of stumbled upon the assessment that we do that we figured out what the problem really was. And it was essentially, my daughter's diagnosed with ADHD, but she's inattentive, but it's not strict inattention in terms of ADHD. It's been compounded by the fact she's got auditory and visual processing issues. Now, as a result of that, we put her on a cognitive skills training program, and the results were, they spoke for themselves. 6 months later, we were starting to get feedback from teachers saying, not quite sure what you're doing, but the focus is amazing, keep it up. The schoolwork's great. We're seeing a self-esteem change. We're starting to see how her memory's improving. So we added some further research into this, and I thought, well, I have to buy a business then, because my daughter cannot possibly be the only one. And essentially that's how the business was born. It was about the fact that I knew my daughter, left as she was, would basically amount to nothing. But I knew that she's got something in her where we all know that our children are incredibly intelligent. We want them to be the best version of them that they can be, but there's many children who are floundering at the moment for a number of reasons, and cognitive skill weaknesses are one of those reasons.
Okay, lovely. So how long has the academy, let me get that word right, the Focus Academy going for? How long have you been set up for?
So we started in 2017. Okay. And you know, my daughter's in GCSE year now, and you know, she's not going to come out with 9, she's not, but she's not doing a spectacular fail, I can promise you that. Cognitively, she's fine-tuned. If she wants to pay attention, she can. Because she can filter out those distractions. Her brain is working as fast as it possibly can do, because it's optimal at the moment. It's just in peak performance. And essentially, it's just about the fact that if we left her where she was, I'm not even sure that sixth form would be an option for her right now. So it really is incredible what it does.
That is so incredible, because A2I Dyslexia was set up from a very frustrating place. I mean, you know, I always say, and I think I've probably mentioned it a couple of times on this program, I couldn't find the help I wanted locally. So I thought, I'm going to do something about it. But I had no money to start it, Mandy. So I just did it. And here we are 5 years later. Yeah. And there's so many other people that needed this help. But, you know, and I think what makes it really interesting is when you have identified a problem and you solve it. And of course, that was your daughter. And that's incredible. Yeah. So you put all your passion into it. You put everything into it to make it work, really.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now, I know you've got some PowerPoint presentations, Mandy, to kind of start off this live show, just, you know, make it, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, to kick start it all. Now, maybe if you can show a couple of PowerPoints of what, from the beginning, what you do and the interest of the work you do, and give us a little bit of a demonstration there. That would be really amazing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, essentially, what we need to remember is, in order for the brain to work and for our children, for example, to take on board the academic information that teachers are trying to, you know, get into their brains, there needs to be the mechanism underneath of cognitive skills need to be working optimally. And essentially what actually happens is when there's a weakness in those cognitive skills, such as the ability to pay attention, the ability to remember things, the ability to filter out auditory and visual distractions. If we just, you know, those children who really get overstimulated by noise, or they just get overstimulated by the things that they see, it's all those things point to the fact that there's a cognitive skill weakness. And what we know about individuals with dyslexia is one of the heightened skills that's weakened in the cognitive skill set is working memory. Working memory is a version of short-term memory. Working memory is basically utilized, working memory is used for maths, it's used for accessing information, it's like almost like playing a video back, holding that information and remembering what you saw. It's we need working memory to remember instructions. So, you know, when you as a mother tell your daughter or your son, go upstairs and put your school bag away, and then put your dirty washing in the wash basket, and then bring your empty cup down, you know, you'll go and find them 15 minutes later lying on the bed staring at the ceiling or the fish, because they can't remember what you told them. We need a working memory to be able to read, and that's another reason why individuals with dyslexia have such significant challenges with reading, and also with learning math and problem solving capabilities is really quite extensive about the involvement of working memory, and it's one of the biggest weaknesses in the skill set of individuals with dyslexia. But also we have weaknesses in sorry, I've gone blank. We've got weaknesses in the ability to pay attention. We've got, that short-term memory, and just holding on to things is really such an issue. And also with individuals with dyslexia, we've got the ability to process auditory information. Believe it or not, auditory information is utilized in the process of reading. And so we know that there's cognitive skill weaknesses there too.
Right, fantastic. So I'm just going to really dive into our first question, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you've explained a little bit of cognitive skills, and I think you've given some examples of that as well. But what is the difference between the cognitive skills and training and tutoring of what you do? But I think before I move on to that question, could you let our viewers get a little bit of a background about you as an individual, like your skills and knowledge and where you started from before you set this up, for example?
Sure.
Yeah, because I think when we met, you did speak a little bit about that, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is there's obviously a focus on ADHD, but I think what we need to remember is that 3 out of 10 individuals have actually got diagnosed with dyslexia, actually have an ADHD diagnosis. However, on the flip side, 50 to 60% of individuals diagnosed with ADHD actually have a dyslexia diagnosis. So, or a learning disability of sorts. And the scary thing is, I think some stats I came across the other day, up to 20% of the population is affected by dyslexia, which is a really, really scary place to be. So my journey started, I actually used to have my own events company in South Africa. And a lot of our business was taken up working with pharmaceutical companies, which was really interesting because one of the portfolios that we got heavily immersed in was actually for ADHD, and it was for medication related to ADHD in the adult and pediatric portfolio. And it was really funny that, I don't say funny, but throughout this journey, I would be doing information evenings and workshops and speaker tours with ADHD specialists. And I was sitting at the back of the room with these guys, and I'm thinking, while I'm watching their presentations, thinking every time they were going through the fact checklist about diagnoses, what you would see, and I'm seeing myself. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I think I've got ADHD. And then when my daughter got diagnosed, I actually sent my husband at the time, I sent him off for a diagnosis, and we all did the assessments that we do, not diagnostic assessments, but it was really interesting to see. I wanted to see if his assessment plus my assessment equals my daughter's assessment, to see if there was any parity there as well. There wasn't, but it was really an interesting exercise to do. But it's just her cognitive skills are weak in specific areas related to ADHD. Thankfully, at this point, dyslexia hasn't been an issue for her, but that it affects so many other people. And so my journey was, I ran a big portfolio of ADHD events. And so when we got here and I started the business, it was a little bit fortuitous on the basis that I'd had all this information fed to me during the 10 years that I was doing my business. And now suddenly here I am crusading in the world, trying to make cognitive skills development a key effort in part of education.
Wow. Now, when I met you in the Zoom on the one-to-one that we had, I was so blown away when you showed me some of the stats and the diagrams of how the sort of specific learning are all connected and so forth. I know you've got some PowerPoints, which you're going to show our viewers as we move on with the program. And it would be great to talk us through this. You know, what is this and what is it all about? I think I've kind of seen it somewhere before, but your one really blew me away because it was like everything was me. And I thought, right, okay.
Well, essentially, if we look at the tip of the iceberg, which is the part above the water, essentially in that grey section, if everything is working optimally, right, this is essentially the grey section is the executive function. It's essentially the CEO of the brain. If everything's working optimally, then an individual will be able to learn, read, listen, think, don't fidget, keep still, remember, pay attention and problem solve. That would all be working beautifully. And whether it's a child that we're talking about or ourselves, we shouldn't really be having any challenges at all with regards to how we approach our academia and academic life and learning process. However, when we start seeing a weakness, whether it's ADHD, whether it's dyspraxia, whether it's dyslexia, whether it's autism, doesn't matter what, it's pointing directly to the fact that underneath that executive function is being held up by a cognitive skill set, such as sustained attention, hand-eye coordination, spatial memory, remembering where you've put things, working memory, and short-term memory. They all interconnected. It's about behavior. If you're seeing that inflammatory response with your child because they just can't self-regulate that emotion because they feel it so passionately, it just means essentially that they've got some wiring in the brain that's not working properly. It's almost like if you think about a highway that goes from point A to point B, if we're seeing the fact that we can't sit still, and we fidget all the time, or we struggle to remember things, in terms of that memory neuron in the brain, it means that it can't get from point A to point B. So what's actually happening, it might be a bit of a disjoint. So the work that we do creates incremental changes so that the pathways actually end up talking to each other. So we either end up rerouting that pathway, or we end up just smoothing it out so things get easier. And so once we start doing that and the work gets done, then learning gets easier, reading gets easier, things start changing. And so essentially the executive function is basically 1/8 of the iceberg. The problem is, if you're seeing any of those challenges, there's 7/8 of the cognitive skills that are really causing those problems that are lying underneath that probably need some assistance.
Right. Absolutely awesome. Now I know you've got a couple more slides to show us, and I think in the studio we've got a lovely Yola who's managing everything in the background for us. So as we go along, of course, we'll ask to see more PowerPoints that you've got to show us. Now I just want to welcome our viewers, if there are any viewers at all. I think there must be plenty of people watching from across the world. Of course, if anybody wants to connect with Mandy, her name's Mandy Elliott. The company she works for is called the Focus Academy. She's on Instagram at Focus in Fleet and Facebook Focus Academy UK. And of course, that will all be on our live show as well. And you can contact Mandy direct for some support and everything that you need. Now, Mandy, there is a cost towards what you do, isn't it? There is a charge. Would you want to tell us how much that is? If someone needed support?
It is a geographical situation currently. We are looking for people around the country who are as passionate as we are. So if anybody would like to get involved in the business, by all means, get in contact, because the more people we can help, the better. Essentially, we've got an assessment that we do that measures levels of attention. So it gives us in real time what your attention looks like. It tells us how fast that brain is processing information. It tells us how impulsive you are. It tells us, do you make careless mistakes, or do you have a really nice methodical approach to your work? It gives us a reading on that. But what's really, really critical is it actually gives us a measurement of how severely you're impacted by auditory and visual distractors. Now, how that becomes really important is my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD, which they actually say is an attention deficit. That's not the case at all. Our children can pay attention if they've got a hyper-focus of something of interest. The unfortunate reality is life is boring, and it's always going to have stuff that's boring. So we've got to teach our children what attention looks and feels like, and our system makes that tangible so that we can strengthen that and make that skill stronger. And essentially, we're doing the assessment that we do, plus your first initial 6 training sessions, so you can get a taster for it. We're based in Fleet in Hampshire, and the cost associated with that is £249.
Right.
And then after that, we can have a discussion and then see if you'd like to continue, if it might work for you, if it's something you'd like to discover and take on further.
Right. Excellent. Fantastic. Right. That's really amazing. Now, can we just go back and see some of the PowerPoints that you have got? I mean, I know you did, email our producer the PowerPoints. If it is possible, we'd like to see a bit more. Now, okay, this is one of them. Hope you can see it there. The difference between cognitive skills, training and tutoring. Would you be able to kind of maybe simplify that for us a little bit more? Yeah,
I think what we need to remember is if our child is struggling at school and they're struggling with maths, they're struggling with reading, they're struggling with their spelling, they're struggling with comprehension. We need to take a step back. Our first normal call to port is to actually get a tutor. Why? Because if a child's struggling, let me get a tutor because I just need to build his confidence. The problem that comes in, if the brain is not working effectively and efficiently, as per that previous diagram, no amount of one-to-one is going to help me retain information. So what we need to do is go back to basics, and we need to go and do some cognitive skills training, some brain training, or cognitive skills training with whoever you choose to do it with. But choose to build and strengthen that skill set. We need to strengthen that working memory. We need to strengthen the ability to pay attention. We need to strengthen how we filter out information so that we can focus on the task at hand. And a key example of how I did this with my daughter is when we got the brain working with her, we actually, because she'd missed so much information through the majority of her academic life, I got a tutor, but I didn't start her with the work that she needed to do now. We actually took her back to year 1, and we started building the building blocks because she'd missed all of that. And that's why, let's say in year 6, for example, if we've got children who are really struggling with maths in the curriculum, you need to remember they've been struggling with their attention. They've been struggling with their reading skills for their entire academic life. There's a lot of information that's been missed. We need to get the brain working. When the neurons are firing a little bit faster, we go back to the beginning and we start building those foundational blocks so that by the time that they actually the curriculum and their tutoring meet up together, they'll be in a much stronger position to be able to take on board any new information. And that's really what's quite the difference, is tutoring is going to give me information if I happen to miss a class today. But cognitive skills training, basically, we're trying to enhance independent learning. We're trying to get the brain to think for itself. It's the same as Albert Einstein. It's not the academics that help us. It's the training of the mind to think for itself. That's the bit that's most important.
Right. Okay. This is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm like, Mandy, where have you been hiding? You know, where's this company been? You know, I'm so glad that we found you and managed to get you to come on our live show. I think it's really, really important that you know, we kind of, to be honest with you, I mean, with me having dyslexia, I wish I had this sort of you know, measurement and how to work the brain earlier on before. Because my assessment, you know, I got assessed, Mandy, and I was given this assessment. It's as thick as that, you know, and I'm like, what would you do with this? And I read it and I kind of fling it to one side, not because I didn't want to. It was just like, I don't understand any of it. Yeah. But if we're doing it the way, like, train the brain, it's slightly different, isn't it? Because then you're measuring my cognitive and you're measuring my, you know, attention span and short-term memory, long-term memory. And it makes sense to me. I'm not saying the assessment doesn't. I've still got my assessment. I look at it sometimes, right, okay. You know, I look at my dyslexia assessment and all the dyspraxia and dyscalculia assessment. I'm like, this is absolutely fantastic. And then there's some kind of measurement on the back. I don't understand none of it. I just don't get it. And I think a lot of dyslexics will agree with me that, look, you want the support that can help you as best as you can. Dyslexia assessments are perfect and brilliant, yes. But then, you know,
then what?
What happens next? Basically.
That's exactly it. And that's what we're basically fighting for. It's what we need to remember, especially now, and especially what's happened through COVID. Our children have their cognitive skills, they're in decline. We're actually having some really serious challenges. And I mean, we know that this, under the S.E.N register in most schools, they're normally about a 30% across the board from autism, dyslexia, ADHD, and so forth that fall under that register. The problem that comes in, and please tell Regina Anderson, lovely to hear you, and it is available in the US, I can chat to you, send me an email. But the thing is, it's literally just a case of teachers need to understand, as well as parents, in order for you to teach me information about the curriculum is what I need. My brain needs to be working to such an extent that I can take that information on board. If it's not working, the information's not going to sit, no matter how much you press it in. So, I mean, just to give you a little bit of a reference, I remember with fondness, my primary school teacher, Mrs. Clack, bless her heart, it feels like she sat with me for eons trying to teach me how to tie a shoelace. I couldn't tie my shoelace. I remember my friends all getting it right, but cognitively, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was just something. And but she sat there with patience, and she showed me, and she showed me, and she showed me, and eventually the the light bulb went on and I got it. Now, what we need to remember, the education curriculum as it currently stands, we're putting our children under so much pressure. It sometimes takes up to 400 repetition times to understand a concept. And what we're doing with our children in the current education system at the moment, we're saying today we're going to learn 2 times 2. Tomorrow we're going to learn 3 times the 3 times table. The day after that we're going to learn the 4 times table. Yet we're not giving our children enough time to digest, process and understand. We're just shoving the curriculum down their throat, and it's not the teacher's response. It's not the teacher's fault. The teachers are just doing what they're being told to do.
Yeah.
The problem is we're forgetting about the mechanism of learning. That's the simplicity of it.
Right. So with the work that the Focus Academy do is I'll give you an example, Mandy. I am terrible with names. The only reason why I'm able to mention your name, Mandy, because Mandy is something that I will remember. And I know it sounds really crazy. But if I've got a name like Marion or Marion or maybe Maya or anything like that, it's like I get them all muddled up. I can't remember people's names. I'm a teacher myself. And it's like it can be really embarrassing sometimes calling somebody the wrong name. I get Daniels and Daniel and Danny, not Danny's, Daniels and there's another one, Darren and Daniels. I get them all muddled up. And it can be quite embarrassing. And sometimes people get fed up, like, look, call me the right name for crying out loud. I don't do it deliberately. Sure. So if I came to the Focus Academy, how would you support me or help me to remember the name Daniel and David are not the same this? They're quite different. What mechanisms are there? Am I looking at stickers, colors, color coordination? What am I looking at? What are the process for me to remember? Names,
we don't actually give you sort of exercises in how to remember that specifically. What that is there's actually a neuron in the brain that's not talking to each other properly that says you can't remember that, right? You've said my name 400 times. You will remember that for the duration of this this broadcast, right? The problem is what's actually happening is you've got a neuron that's misfiring. So when you say it, it doesn't register. So ultimately, we've got some exercises. So I would definitely sign you up on the working memory exercise. I would definitely put you on the spatial memory game. I would definitely put you on the short-term memory game. And basically, once they start getting stronger, it's really interesting. We've actually got a 76-year-old lady that's training with us currently because she was starting to have cognitive decline with regards to how she was remembering things, especially over the last year. She says with COVID and her responsibilities being so much less, she was less motivated. She saw the cognitive decline. I think she's done probably 17, 18 sessions with us at the moment. I had a chat with her the other day to have some feedback with her. She says, I've actually got my lust for life back. She says, I'm actually starting to do things. I'm on top of all my paperwork and I can remember stuff. And she said, and what's actually happening, I'm even starting to forward think again, which she'd stopped doing, which sounds really simple. But if she came to the office to do training, she wouldn't plan the route and she'd get stuck in traffic and she'd get all kinds of things. But now she's actually starting to think about what the route looks like, what's the best way to go. And so forward thinking has come in, which sounds really odd, but it's just part of the process. When the brain starts working again, those pathways get stronger, then suddenly we can remember things. And when we remember things, we get our self-esteem starts building. When our self-esteem starts building, we start wanting to pay attention again. It really is the mechanism of learning that's so critical.
Absolutely fantastic. Do you know what? I have to say hello and welcome to our viewers. Now, I see some questions coming in. I think Regina just dropped a message in there. I think she said, are you in the US? And I think you did put thumbs up and said, look, we will be. I mean, you work globally, don't you? You're not just specifically in Fleet. You work globally. Are you doing this via, obviously, online? Because, you know, everybody's working online now. So all your services are provided online?
Unfortunately not. We have to use special equipment. We've actually got a brainwave monitor that sits on the arm, and it actually reads the brain signals in order to get the games to work. So for us to work with you, and that's why I said, if there's anybody who'd like to get involved and start a business in their area, they're more than welcome to get in touch. Because this really is, because we use specialized technology that's actually inspired by NASA, believe it or not. It was actually by a chap who was a teacher and in the US, and he saw how his students were struggling. So I think about 25, 30 years ago, we spent time at NASA seeing what they did in their astronaut training program, and then walked away with some really cool technology. So, and essentially it is about the fact that unfortunately, we have to be in person. So if anybody's looking for start up their own around the country, they're more than welcome to get in touch.
That is absolutely phenomenal. So is it like a franchise thing, or
it probably wouldn't be a franchise? It'd probably be your own independent agency, but we'd obviously give you everything that you'd need to be able to set that up. Yeah,
amazing. Thank you so much for that, Mandy. Now let me just go to my producer and make sure that we're seeing all these comments coming through. So we saw something from Regina. I think Heather, Dr. Brobe, which I know quite well, dropped something, said she agrees on something that you said, and also if there is any more questions, please, our producer will show us, put it up on the screen, and we'll be able to share that. I want to say thank you so much to our viewers, obviously, for joining us and having a conversation going. It's really important that we have this conversation going. So Sarah, I'm in South Africa. Do you have any recommendation for Cape Town? And that's from Sarah.
Hello, Sarah. I'm actually South African. Please have a look at our website and hear the story. And yes, I do absolutely have an option for you in Cape Town. Yeah, get in contact, and I'll definitely be able to keep you posted.
Amazing. Heather says amazing conversation. I think it's so important. I'll tell you what I'm finding I'm struggling with. Since COVID, it's like my whole mind has been on obviously getting well and making sure that everything's okay. And you want to stay safe and make sure everything's okay. Now, you come to work and you're like, I also got to work and obviously make a living. So I'm now have to train my brain to be able to focus at work for work and obviously deal with my family at a certain time. That's quite difficult sometimes to combine the two, because we're always working from home as well. So I just think it's so phenomenal what you do, because I think, I'm not going to promise anything, but I'm hoping I can save up and come to you and see if I can get this done, because I really need some sort of MOT to do with my cognitive, because a lot of things I'm forgetting, a lot of things I forget time, people's names, all sorts of things. I know it's part of my dyslexia, but if there's a way I can improve it, that'd be absolutely phenomenal.
I think that was start next week.
Wonderful. That's Sarah with her comment there. Now, Mandy, do you have an email address people can contact you at, or how, apart from your website, which is www.thefocusacademy.co.uk, which we will put up on our live show? Is there like an email address people can contact you on?
Yeah, it's mandy@thefocusacademy.co.uk.
Right, wonderful. Now, when we post this video on all our social media platforms, we'll add your email address to that as well.
Great, thank you.
So that people can contact you. I think what you do is great. I think we all need it. I think we need it in every school, to be honest with you. Yeah. And it's not just children you deal with, though, is it, Mandy? Adults as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it's what we do is something called neurocognitive training. And essentially, it's actually got, if you look at the research and data, it actually formulates about 28 indications. And that reaches up to, obviously, Alzheimer's dementia. We'll obviously have to be sensitive to when we're catching, probably at the diagnostic point. But we're talking also about the cognitive issues in terms of brain fog. We're talking tinnitus, complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS, and chronic pain. We've actually had a student who has had CRPS. She got discharged from the paediatric unit in Southampton, did training with us for about a year, and I think about a year later, she was running races at the school sports day and winning, and has taken up competitive dancing and gymnastics. So it really is about the power of the brain. So from pain management, ADHD, from autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, we can't cure them. That's not what we're trying to do. What we're saying is you've got some weaknesses. We need to strengthen those so things don't have to be so difficult.
Absolutely. To be honest, Mandy, there is no cure. If there was, I think I would have got the cure. The minute I got diagnosed, I probably thought, can I take a pill to get
there we go.
my spelling and memory and all those things that go with having dyslexia and all the other overlapping conditions. Now, agreed, Elizabeth, indeed, in every school. Yes, I think that it would be a really fantastic idea. And this is why we put on our live show, because we want people to share, to join us. I mean, Regina, please share this live show. Heather, please do share it, because it then gets trickled down to other people, and somebody desperately might need this help and be able to move one step further, because there's nothing like and I can speak for myself, forgetting. I can't remember. It's like I can't remember where I'm supposed to be. You know, I'll go somewhere, and of course I can't pronounce this name. Is it Jaranji? Maybe I might have got it wrong, but my pronunciation is really awful. She's strengthening and weaknesses is what she's actually said. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do pardon me if I've said your name incorrectly, because sometimes how I see things is how I pronounce them. So how they're spelt is how I say it. And sometimes I know things are said differently. So Heather says, already shared. Thank you so much. Heather's always promoting our live show. She's absolutely phenomenal. Dr. Brober, she's a psychologist. Yeah. So she's into brain and all those things. You got it right. Oh, I've got the name right, Jaranji. I did get it right. Super wonderful. I'm not too sure where she's joining us from. Where are you joining us from, Jaranji? It'd be great to know which country you're joining us from. And please do share with other people as well. And it's really, really phenomenal for you to join us. And I think everybody can really benefit from what the Focus Academy offers. And of course, there is a cost to it. But you know what? Sometimes, from Malawi, there you go. Right, excellent. Sometimes we have to invest in ourselves, you know. I remember when I thought I had dyscalculia, I wasn't even too sure. I just thought, look, I'm terrible at maths, can't tell the time, can't measure to save my life. If I'm baking cake, I'll just bang all the flour in a bowl, sugar and milk, and make sure it come out right. Half of the time, Mandy came out like rock cake, but hey, we still ate it because we invested money into it. And it was really embarrassing because I just don't know the value of measuring things and maths and this. And I remember speaking to my one of her assessors and said, look, I think I need a dyscalculia assessment. I think one of the first things she said to me, but you've managed all this time, you know. I said, please, can I please have this assessment? I don't care how much it cost me. I saved up towards it, in fact. It took me about 5 to 6 months to save up towards the assessment. And I got the assessment done. And I remember it came back as I have dyscalculia. And I stood in enough. I knew it. I knew that there was, you know, something wrong with my maths and adding up. And I was grateful for that. But I'm glad I invested that money into having the assessment done. For now, I know what support I need, and also what tools and mechanisms I can use to support me running a business. So some people will say, oh, it's too expensive. Listen, sometimes we've got to spend money on ourselves or value, you know, put a value on whatever we're doing, because in the long run, it really is beneficial. And having my dyscalculia assessment has been the best thing I ever had. Because I've got tools now to help me.
Exactly.
So, yes, I've just thought I'd share that with our viewers. So Heather, it's important to invest in ourselves. Totally agree, 100%. I know money can be a problem. I know it can be tight at times, but in the long run, something like the Focus Academy could, you know, I mean, you also like support dementia and Alzheimer's and you know, across the board as well. Now, just before, I mean, time's not quite up here. We've got quite a few moments to go. Is there any sort of anything at all, Mandy? Any tip? It doesn't have to be, you know, something that you think. You know, sometimes we think it's quite minor, but it could really help someone. Anything at all? I mean, you could start with something like, there you go, your PowerPoint is up. That's even better, isn't it?
Well, that's great.
Absolutely.
I think what we need to remember, and research tells us that individuals with dyslexia are predominantly right-brained, right? Right-brained and left-brained. So this is also one, when we do the study skills course with some of our children, we always determine if they're left or right-brained first, because that's going to determine how best they're going to learn. Right-brain dominance, what actually happens is we're creative, we respond to music and videos, and we like things in color, and we like things in, my daughter, for example, comes up with the most random dodgy rhymes to help her remember things. And it's all about that creative right-hand side of the brain that basically helps her to remember things. So we've got to make learning fun. You know, if you're sitting there with a piece of paper trying to get your little dyslexic child to remember the story or do that comprehension or do his times tables or anything like that, make it fun. Think outside the box. I always sort of like say, what's wrong with practicing handwriting with your finger in the shaving foam while he's in the bath? Or with a stick in the sand, or you know, big creative rhymes and pictures, and best through movement. They also need to hear like the whole sound and image in order to learn sometimes. You might find that some of our children, they sort of might need to close their eyes or turn their head away from the teacher because they're trying to process and listen to what's happening. Also hands-on. But videos, colours, images and songs. So if your child is a right brain, the way to know if they're right brain is if they're always singing, rapping, if they can watch a YouTube video and tell you word for word what was in that script, no problem, then you're probably finding that they're right brain. If they're more of an analytical thinker, they like facts and figures, then it's left brain. So now one of the pictures that we do in our study skills course, where we actually try to get our children to remember the city name of Hobart. So we broke that down. So we said hobo and art, and said, right, so, and I actually spent probably 10 minutes on this exercise with them. And I said, paint me, or in your mind, tell me the biggest picture about a hobo. What does he look like? What does he smell like? What does he feel like? What is he wearing? Has he got a beard? And we paint this really big picture about what he looks like. And then what actually happens is we do art. We incorporate art into the picture. So hobo drawing art. What does it look like? How big's the canvas? What is he drawing? Can you smell? Is there city? Where is he standing? All that kind of thing. Bring all the senses into that. And what actually happened, I think, at the end of the study skills course, it was like 5 hours later, I pointed at all of them and I said, right, what was the city I needed you to remember? And everybody got it right. So it's literally about how you address learning. It's what are you using? And with our right brain dominance, it is incorporating all of those senses into that, if and where possible.
Excellent. Now, we just had Marcia, rather. I know her as Marcia rather than Mercy. Marcia Bressett just literally, her question was up there. I think it was more contributing than a question. She said, learning can be creative and fun. And I think that, the more, I always say, the more the dyslexic, how to teach dyslexics, everybody can learn that way. But when it's done the other way around is when we struggle. It's really funny how you said, when a child, for example, use the example of a child, may need to close eyes or turn head away. I do that right now, Mandy. Now, I'm on a live show, so I'm looking directly at you. But if it was anywhere else, if I was talking to face with you, Mandy, most of the time I'm looking over there to think, have my thought.
Right.
I'm forever apologizing. I'm really sorry. I just need to have a thought for a minute and come back. Because otherwise, I wouldn't even remember what I'm supposed to say. Yeah. Some people don't actually get that. They think, why is she looking away all the time? But I'm so glad that you said that on your PowerPoint, because that is me all over. I never really give people eye contact sometimes. It's like I'm looking away, have a thought and come back and then carry on what I'm saying. And it's great that you mentioned that on there, because I thought it was just me. But it's one of your tips to be able to,
It's basically the fact that the brain needs time to catch up. And what we also need to remember is our assessment can pick up slow processing skills. And what actually happens is a slow processor in class, this poor child, what actually happens is we've got a poor child who's sitting there and the teacher's going hell for leather through the curriculum. And this child is only picking up. He's still at the first 5 minutes of class and it's 35 minutes later and he's still trying to process what just happened. I mean, so, that also could be an impact with a dyslexic child. I mean, it really is profound what an assessment, a proper assessment could do. It's not going to signpost you or diagnose, but it's going to give us some indication with regards to how they're paying attention and how fast is your brain processing information. Because if it's really slow, then that's something else that at least and then we can work on and target.
Absolutely. And I think Marcia just come back and said, it's not you, Lizzie, it really isn't me. And, I just find it so amazing when I saw that on your PowerPoint, I thought, this is so me. I'm always looking away to speak to people. And sometimes it's like, if they don't understand or know who I am, they'll think, God, she's a bit rude. She's not looking at me. But that's because I can't even remember what I need to say unless I'm completely sort of focused on something else and then come back. Now, in all my learning, it's always come across as if I'm not bothered. I'm looking out the window. I'm not really looking out the window. I'm getting my thoughts to come back to understand. And also, Mandy, you talked about fidgeting. I'm somebody that will always be fidgeting. I'm 100% sure that I need some kind of ADHD assessment. And I'm saying that live on the camera because 2, 3, 4 minutes or 5 minutes in front of the PC, I'm like, right, I've had enough. I need to move on to something else. My comfort zone and what I love doing is what I'm doing right now. I love the live shows. I love the podcast. I love the events, all those things. But if I'm working in front of the PC and I'm catching up with my emails, I need to literally walk away and come back and catch up with them. Most dyslexic people I've met are probably a bit similar to me. To start a task, it's like, right, okay, it takes me forever to start a task, Mandy.
Right.
And again, you know, with the Focus Academy, I think you're doing fantastic work. Really, really amazing work. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to say before we bring the show to an end. It can be anything or it can be nothing, you know.
Well, I think that if people are listening to this, then obviously they wanted to know a little bit more info. And I think the problem that comes in, there's a plethora of people out there saying get the diagnosis, or the schools aren't putting in enough effort, or whatever the problem is. Ultimately, our children have cognitive weaknesses. That's why we're here. And ultimately, change is possible. And that's all you need to know. You just got to find somebody in your area. If you're not close to Fleet, I'm really, really sorry, because I'd love to work with you. But I'll be seeing you soon, Elizabeth. You'll be coming to us soon. But I think ultimately there are places around the world that can assist. So if you want to get in touch, then please do. Change is possible. And if your child is struggling, they're really clever. They're really clever. In your heart of hearts. And this isn't their destination. This is part of the journey. This is just the start. Change is possible.
Absolutely. And honestly, change is possible. As in Jaranji just it literally just said what you said. Marcia just said, look, she understands, and it's great that you can support so many people. She's also put like how creative learning can be really fun and so forth. I just want to say thank you so much, Mandy, for coming on to A2I Dyslexia live show. Now, I love the idea that when you said, look, no matter who wants to join their Focus Academy, they can do that. Now, they can contact you and they can replicate what you're doing in another country, in another city, no matter where they are, and you're going to train them to do that. Is there a cost attached to that? Obviously, there's a cost attached to that, or not?
There will be, because there'll be equipment that needs to be purchased.
Absolutely.
But and obviously but everything is possible, and anything is possible.
Absolutely. Mandy, you are absolutely phenomenal. You're inspirational. You're so amazing at what you do. And I'm so glad that we managed to finally get you onto A2I Dyslexia live show. Now, if anybody wants to connect with Mandy, she's on LinkedIn, Mandy Elliott, the Focus Academy. Her website is www.thefocusacademy.co.uk. Instagram, Focus in Fleet, and Facebook at at Focus Academy UK. Please do connect with her. Absolutely amazing organization. Train the Brain is what we titled our live show, but the company's called the Focus Academy. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, with a different topic. Now, Mandy, please don't leave the studio. Stay in there with me, because I'm going to come back in the studio and we can have a little catch up before you leave.
Sure.
I want to say goodbye to everybody and thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now.
Well, thanks to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.